the counterfeit market has just kind of exploded. So,
but the counter,
I'm about to admit to a crime here, so I don't know if I want to tell you this. Sorry.
You can't plead to the fifth on the Law Have Mercy podcast. I'm sorry. Hey, it's Chaz back again with another episode of Law Have Mercy. I'm bringing a returning guest, very special, Mrs. Sarah Dupont. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
She's our favorite IP, which is intellectual property lawyer, and she was actually the first guest to go viral.
Yeah.
With our Disney clip.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, that it hit and then it just went insane. And every time I would open my phone, there'd be another 25,000 views and comments and everything else. Carter, you have that clip? It's always told you cannot find a bakery that will make a Disney cake.
A lot of these big companies, they literally have people that are hired just to police their marks. One of the big ones and main ones is Disney. I mean, oh my gosh, they are
Disney.
very aggressive in protecting their marks. We had a client and they were doing fun jumps with Disney characters and they got a letter. So they'll find you, Disney will.
And what's interesting is like that was a small town spot, right?
Oh yeah, like it wasn't even, where we live. So much smaller town. I honestly don't know how they found them, but I mean, again, Disney hires people that are just set to do that and to look and police their mark, which, I mean, they should. It's their brand. That's what they want to do.
Yeah, but to have the resources to like find someone in Crowley, Louisiana. Right?
Yeah.
And what was interesting is a lot of the comments were, well, you got to find the Mexican bakery.
Right.
And then we were talking to Kevin downstairs, who's Hispanic, and he's like, oh, yeah, dude, you go to Mexico, they'll make you any Disney princess on a cake tomorrow. I was like, no, I think they meant like there's a Mexican bakery in every town.
Or there's some bakery.
Who is willing to do it.
And they don't care. It's interesting, though, and people made comments about that clip. And there are instances, I mean, everyone, I guess from what I said, they take away, oh, you can't have anything with Disney. Well, that's not true. There are instances where you can actually buy a product and you see it. I mean, you go to Walmart, you go to Target, there's products that have Disney characters on it in the toy section or whatever it is. You're able to do that because whoever made those toys or those products has the proper licensing in place to be able to do that. So there's exceptions to, Disney coming after you. And it's when they have allowed these companies to make their product using their brand, using their name. I mean, all companies have that. So,
but Disney wants their cut.
Oh, of course. Right. I mean, there's a price you pay for that.
Right.
So yeah, they're not just giving you that for free. You got to pay something.
And I see like, and Carter's dealing. He has a podcast with the NIL with UL, and I see a lot of like purple and gold, mm-hmm. right? And so if you are the LSU, like you want to appeal to the Baton Rouge market or Louisiana market, and you want to appear to be an LSU fan. Mm-hmm. There's two ways to do it. You could go through the licensing
Correct.
To actually wear the LSU jersey, mm-hmm. the LSU logo and stuff, or you could just wear purple and gold.
Right.
And I guess there's a hole there where you can look like you're wearing LSU gear.
Go to a game, you can wear a purple shirt. That's not necessarily LSU. I mean, they can't come after you for just a plain purple shirt. But if you're, manufacturing some T-shirt or something on your own without that licensing, technically they have the right to make you stop doing that. Same thing, with NFL. Fanatics is that big company that has the licensing rights to be able to sell all of those jerseys. So only certain companies have that.
Yeah.
But if you do it on your own, it's a risk. So.
I'm always. What's funny though, this is crazy. When I watch, like, let's say when Johnny Manziel was doing an ad or Odell Beckham or something, and they were doing it and they wanted to appear to be in their team's uniforms. Mm-hmm. And it might be a commercial for Gillette or Subway or mm-hmm. something like that. Why do they have to make the jerseys so damn cheap looking and ugly? Like, you could still make nice jerseys. It doesn't have to be a solid blue with just white numbers with big holes like that are an inch thick. Like, make it look like a game jersey. Just don't put the logo on it.
Maybe they just don't even want to touch it. Who knows? But
yeah, it's always bothered me when they try to like replicate game stuff mm-hmm. and it doesn't look anything like the real one,
Yeah.
So we talked about, does that fall under trademark?
Yeah, it does. So, Disney, when we were talking about their branding, their logos, that's a trademark. The licensing part, you can get the rights to use that trademark. You can get licensing for any kind of intellectual property. So whether it's a copyright or a patent, any of those allow for licensing, abilities. If you want they won't give them to anybody. You don't want to give it to everybody. But there are certain companies that can benefit you as an intellectual property owner and holder that can help you expand your brand, expand your product. And so like, okay, I want to be able to give the rights to somebody that can really get it out there and make it and sell it for me. And I'm going to get some money back on the back end, whatever it is you agree to. Yeah. So that's how that works.
I know someone who has a t-shirt shop in town, and it's a printing shop, and she was going through the licensing process to get approval by LSU.
Yeah.
And I think that was a big deal. I think there was a lot of paperwork. She had to wait a period of time. But to be able to print LSU gear is a big deal, and it allows her to expand her reach instead of just putting the generic purple and gold stuff. So, it looks like the middle of the mall.
Right.
When you don't actually have the LSU stuff on it, right? And people are creative, like how they try to get around it.
I don't know. Did you watch? There was a 30 on 30 this past weekend. I don't know if you saw it with Notre Dame and talking about those T-shirts that they made back, was it the 80s? But it was really fascinating to hear all about that too. And they had to deal with the same kind of things because they didn't have the proper licensing to use Notre Dame or
it was just students that were making
students
shirts.
That were making all these shirts. Did you see that?
Yeah. It was they were making shirts, and then somebody can walk up and tap you on the shoulder and say, let me see your registration or whatever, your licensing, and they can seize all your property.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but when I was in college, I didn't have the money to.
Well, that's why they did it, because they were trying to make some money, and then
it got pulled. Another one that I kind of came across when I was looking up recent trademarks was Yeezy, right? And so Yeezy left Adidas. He had a collaboration with
I don't know if he left Adidas or required to stop.
And Adidas's stock plunged right after he left, right?
Right.
And so he had a collaboration with Adidas to make his Yeezy sneakers.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Kanye or his company owns the trademark for the brand Yeezy. They did a collaboration with Adidas, who is, a shoe manufacturer and other apparel and stuff too. I think they only did shoes, but so they did a partnership where Adidas provided basically the designs for the footwear. They used the Yeezy trademark as part of that. So they went in together, collaborated. I'm sure they had multiple contracts in place stating, what all the parameters were, and sold this product. Well, Kanye is Kanye, and things happen. And so their partnership fell apart. And so now the question is, well, who owns what? Again, Adidas owns these design patents for these shoes, and Kanye does not. So he's got the brand, but now he can't sell the shoes because he doesn't own the designs. And so same thing with Adidas. They have the designs on these shoes, but they don't own the Yeezy trademark and the brand. So how do they move forward with this? Will Kanye have to come up with his own designs, moving forward if he wants to sell and continue the Yeezy brands? Probably so. And same thing with Adidas. I guess they could still fall under the Adidas brand and not use that Yeezy. But
so 1 + 1 = billions.
Yeah.
Billions minus 1 = 0.
Zero.
Because Adidas, I don't know. I haven't searched their site, but
I haven't either.
They could technically create the same type shoe just without the name.
Yeah, I mean they own the design patent on these shoes, so they have the rights to that design and that particular look of shoe. So they could just rebrand it in a different name or just sell it under Adidas, but they own that. So Kanye cannot try and come and sell that design of shoe himself, or he'd be infringing on their design patent essentially, unless he changes it up. But we can talk about that later.
It seems like Kanye got the better end of the deal because he has the name that
people know.
That people know, right? And because
arguably, but I mean, people know Adidas too.
That's true. When I went to Germany for the Berlin Marathon, Adidas was the main sponsor. It's a German company, I believe, and everyone wears Adidas. Like everybody wears Adidas.
So, I mean, you look at these big brands, it's Nike and it's Adidas. Everybody knows them. So, is Adidas really, are they worse off by not having Yeezy associated with it? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know.
I think it was a beneficial relationship for both of them.
I think it was volatile.
Yeah.
Kanye is, again, Kanye. So it's a risk, I guess, with you when you have somebody like that who can say or do anything at any time. And does Adidas want to be associated with that? I don't think so, which is why they pulled the branding,
But that just goes to speak to like how important branding is and trademarking, and like how important the work that you do, because that same slide that sells for $125, $200 could be replicated and made for $3.
Pennies on the dollar.
But you put a name brand on it and it's worth.
People go crazy.
People go crazy.
I don't know the psychology behind that, but people and consumers love a brand. I guess we're bombarded with it every day. We see branding on everything we do, whether it's food, whether it's what we watch, just driving in the car, you see it everywhere. So people love a brand. And they love its recognition. It's all of that.
Like speaking of Nike, but the term like just do it. Is that something that you trademark as well?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. A slogan, you can trademark slogans. So trademark, you think of logos, you think of the name Nike itself, the brand name, slogans, all of that.
That's interesting.
Also, we didn't touch on this last time, but there's also a subsect of trademarks called trade dress. And it's another association with a brand that you think of, but it may not be the logo or the name itself, but it's an appearance of something. So for example, the Coca-Cola bottle or the Heinz ketchup bottle and the appearance of it, that is trade dress, or another, again, subject of a trademark. Also colors. So Tiffany blue, that's a trade dress.
Wow.
So the McDonald's arches, the golden arches, trade dress. So those are all parts of somebody's brand that give that recognition that consumers associate with it.
And how hard is it to get one of those trademarks? Because you're taking things out of commerce, essentially, right?
It can be difficult. You can also get it for smells, like some perfumes, and a smell and a scent can be a trade dress. So that's a little difficult to get. But, again, when you get it, it's good, but you also have to enforce that too. And so it's one extra step. You're trying to make sure nobody uses Tiffany blue if you're selling jewelry, or, the Louboutin red soles on the shoes. You see those.
So when you say they have to enforce it, who has to enforce it?
The owner of whatever intellectual property you're talking about. So whether it's a trademark or a copyright or a patent, the owner of that intellectual property is the one that has to enforce it. So you and I as consumers, we purchase something, let's say, and then I know we're planning to talk about this a little bit later. Let's say it's a counterfeit product. You and I have no really recourse to enforce that against, whoever sold us this counterfeit product. That's the only person that can enforce that is the owner. So it's on them to do their due diligence and do their research and look and find out who is infringing on their intellectual property.
So the owner of Louis Vuitton enforces their own trademark and goes against the seller. Now, is that a civil thing or a criminal thing?
It's both, I think, for counterfeit products. So it's a civil thing when you're just talking about straight infringement, which infringement is somebody has some unauthorized use of your intellectual property. When you're talking about a counterfeit product, though, I think because there's so many laws in place now and it's essentially some kind of theft, I think there's also criminal liability. I'm not going to swear to that because I don't deal with that. But mainly it's civil with just general run-of-the-mill infringement. So we're talking about... what did we talk about last time? Oh, Taco Bell and Taco John's, that's a civil lawsuit. So you just sue somebody for trademark infringement, and you're hoping you can get some sort of damages from them in return. And then the injunction part, which is also for them to quit using your mark or your brand or whatever intellectual property it is at issue. And
when you were talking about enforcing it, like that's almost like an air quotes, because as an owner of intellectual property, you have a duty to enforce. And so even though nothing's going to come up of it, potentially, you still want to report it to the authorities. You still want to maybe send the cease and desist letter, because if you don't use it, you lose it.
Correct.
If you don't, I'm not going to use it. If you don't enforce it, you could lose those
so that's
rights.
true. So if you don't use it, you also lose it. But yes, if you don't enforce it, you run the risk of diluting your brand. You losing your reputation. Because again, you're allowing people to sell something that is similar to yours and that affects you and your reputation. Because it could be a bad product. It could, it could be cheap. It could be bad quality, and people associate it with you. Well, that all goes to diluting your brand. So, it's a requirement to enforce it, but it's also something you want to do as a brand holder.
Yeah,
to enforce it
just
too.
prudent business.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Another thing that I've seen recently about trademarks was Elon Musk with the whole X Twitter thing.
Yeah. So I just I was looking into it. So apparently Elon Musk has been sued for trademark infringement from a company out of Florida that owns or allegedly owns the mark X social media. And so since Twitter, X, formerly known as Twitter, is a social media site, they've sued him for trademark infringement, basically stating that they owned it first. He doesn't have the authorized use, of this mark. He can't use it moving forward in this social media setting. I don't think that there's been any outcome on it yet,
and he's still using it.
He's still using it. So in the meantime, I mean, if you don't get an injunction to make them quit using it while, you filed the lawsuit, you're still using it.
I would imagine they filed for an injunction
Probably
and lost that, right?
Either they lost it or maybe it just hasn't come to hearing yet, unless you get a temporary restraining order, which can happen pretty quickly. Some of the injunctions take a long time to.
How do you trademark a letter of the alphabet?
It depends on how you're using it. So we talked about this last time too. Like, I think I gave the example of a bicycle. You can't trademark the word bicycle when you're talking about, I'm just using a bicycle. But so, I mean, it's because it's going to that's the name of your site, of your social media company. So it's not like I'm just using the letter. Yeah, I'm not just using the letter X and saying nobody can use the letter X in the alphabet at all ever. Nobody can use the letter X for this purpose, for this type of service, this type of good.
Right. Like law have mercy doesn't mean that you can't say it or you can't use it in something else.
And a lot of times when you're filing a trademark application, they'll come back and like the patent office or the trademark office will come back and say, oh, we have to disclaim the use of this phrase together. So like assuming we get a trademark on law have mercy.
We better.
That's the goal, right? You're not going to be able to prevent somebody from using the word law by itself.
Right.
So it's going to be in conjunction with the whole thing. So law have mercy together, because alone, you can't prevent somebody from using the word mercy, but it's as a whole together. And again, in this channel of trade, in this avenue.
You could start a law have mercy bar in New York, probably, right?
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe that's 2.0, 3.0. What do you think, Lay? Manhattan? Look up some real estate there. You got to sell a lot of beer to pay for that real estate.
Well, I get a cut of that. So.
Yeah, exactly. We want to talk about you wearing these nice Golden Goose shoes. Huh?
Well,
you ever had any incidents where you bought some Golden Goose shoes that were not Golden Goose shoes?
Yeah. You've had any incidents of purchasing a counterfeit that you didn't realize was counterfeit at the time?
Husbands, be very mindful of this podcast because your wife may ask for some Golden Goose shoes and you don't want to look at the price tag.
So we were talking about this briefly.
They're good quality though.
So, as a consumer, I mean, you're bombarded with, stuff every day, and you're hoping that what you're buying is authentic and legitimate. Sometimes it's not, and it's not intentional. You're not doing that on purpose. You assume you're getting what you think you're getting or what you intend to be buying. But again, the counterfeit market has just kind of exploded. So, I'm about to admit to a crime here, so I don't know if I want to tell you this. Sorry.
You can't plead to the fifth on the Law Have Mercy podcast. I'm sorry.
So I bought my first pair of what I thought were Golden Goose shoes. This was several years ago, and at a consignment store.
Hell of a deal.
I know. I was like, oh yes, half off, perfect, consignment. I'll take them. So, wearing the shoes, have them for a few years. In the meantime, I buy some additional ones that I know are legitimate. Bought them from, the store or whatever it was.
You're like, these are thin.
Well, it wasn't even that.
Different model here.
I was kind of over them. I'd had them for a while. I'm like, I'm going to move on. So I go to sell them on eBay. And I don't know if you've sold anything on eBay lately or looked into it or even bought anything. But now they have something, because I didn't used to do this, but now they have these authenticators. And so if you're buying or selling something that is, a name brand, you're looking at Gucci, Louis Vuitton, whatever it is, they require the seller to send it to the authenticator first to confirm authenticity before they then send it on to the buyer. So go on, list these Golden Goose shoes or what I think are Golden Goose. Send them, somebody buys them. Okay, great. Send them to the authenticator. about a couple days later, I get an email or a message. They're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, we can't authenticate or confirm the authenticity of these. We're going to send it back." I'm like, "You've got to be kidding me." I was so mortified. And so I messaged the buyer. I'm like, "I'm so sorry. I'm not trying to sell you something fake. I had no idea. I bought it from a consignment store. So I now have them back." So I guess I didn't technically commit a crime because I didn't actually sell them. But so, because apparently, in looking into this, knowingly purchasing a counterfeit product is a crime. Even if you unknowingly purchase a counterfeit product, it's still technically a crime. And then selling a counterfeit product, even if you don't know it's counterfeit, is a crime. So whether they can charge you a penalty, obviously seize the product, whatever that is. So,
well, thank God eBay stopped you in your tracks.
Thank God for eBay,
trying to commit all these crimes.
Sell fake Golden Goose shoes. So I'm like, well, never again am I buying something from a consignment store.
But the consignment store technically committed a crime by selling you the Golden Goose shoes.
100%, or whoever sold it to them first or consigned it to them.
You think they knew?
I don't think they knew. I think
even with the big red 50% off, hell of a deal, once in a lifetime deal sign that they had right over it.
I honestly think the consignment store was kind of
indifferent.
And it didn't, yeah. Okay, yeah, they look like Golden Goose. It says the little label on it, whatever.
Plausible deniability.
I don't think they double checked. They put their head in the sand and thought it was great. They sell handbags and stuff too, which I'm sure are probably fake. Then they don't look into it.
Well, you know who doesn't have their hand in the sand is eBay. eBay's cracking down.
So,
we charging that $25 authentication fee. Was it a fee? Did you have to pay anything?
No, I think maybe just shipping.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't. I didn't get charged anything extra. Now I didn't get the money for the sale.
No.
So
you gotta try again harder next time.
So, and I also
put leather soles in them next time.
Yeah. Also, though, I bought something on Instagram a few years ago that, now it wasn't like a name brand or something, but you get these directed ads, and
I've never seen those.
Never. And it had an image of probably some influencer that I don't know, but wearing this really cute outfit, and it had a link to it. I was like, oh, that's actually really cute. And so I went to go buy it, maybe $70. So I'm like, okay, oh, that's cute. Yeah, I mean, what a good deal for this whole set.
Another good deal.
And I know, I'm such a sucker. And nothing happened. So I'm like, oh shoot, I guess it was fake. And then I think I go back on Instagram a few days later and see the same image with a different company, trying to sell that. I'm like, oh shoot. So interestingly, though,
somebody got a box full of rompers.
Well, about 2 months later, I get something in the mail, and I'm like, "What is this?" And I open it. I'm like, "Oh my God, it's what the set was supposed to be," and it was the worst craftsmanship.
You could just see through it and hold it up.
Somebody just took scissors to a T-shirt. I'm like, "Oh God!" I'm like, "Well, at least they sent me something," but I was like, "Well, now I know I've learned my lesson." So the moral of that story is to prevent counterfeits or purchasing of counterfeits that you aren't aware of, go to the retailer directly. I mean, that's really the only way, unfortunately. I mean, and it's everywhere. You can't do anything about it.
So I'm looking at sites like Alibaba, Temu, even Amazon. And it's the same clothing that you see in the boutiques. Mm-hmm. And you can get a box of stuff for $100.
Yeah.
And
I read something that said about either anywhere from 10% to 60%, which is a big range of products on Amazon are counterfeit. And, I know I've heard of a lot of skincare products, particularly, like if you buy them on Amazon and you think it's, this good brand or, this medical grade skincare product, it's not. So I would put caution, to anybody purchasing any skincare products, particularly, or any kind of vitamin or something like that from Amazon, because do we really know if it's the real thing and what it is actually in that product? A lot of this stuff, most of the 80% of counterfeit products come from China. 80%. Wow. So do we really know what's in these things, what they're made out of?
So if it's Amazon, which is an American company, it's 10 to 60%. We have to assume that Alibaba, Temu, that's 80 to 90 to 100% just counterfeit. And I think people go on that site and say these prices are too good to be true, but it almost looks like it's pirated IP. I'm not even saying it's counterfeit because it's not a Louis Vuitton bag
Yeah.
that's they're posing as a Louis Vuitton bag. It's the same products that we use every day. It could be a phone charger, but it's the quality is just not the same, but
Yeah.
it's pennies on the dollar. It could be a batting net. It could be a machine, some type of machine, and it's pennies on the dollar. Well, they had to get that innovation on how to construct that item from someone who spent a lot of money.
Well, and it's not even necessarily that, because it's like you said, it's not quite the same product. So they have enough, or they know enough, but they're taking shortcuts or using cheaper materials to create it.
And then they have to spend the hundreds of thousands of dollars to design the product, right?
So, it's not, counterfeit products go beyond just, trademark infringement, all that kind of stuff. It's just bad for consumers all around. But behind, there's a whole other slew of issues with the creation of counterfeit products and, child labor laws and all of that stuff too, which I'm not going to get into. But on the intellectual property side, I mean, you're looking at anywhere from copyright infringement to trademark infringement to potentially patent infringement too. If you own a product that is patented and somebody's knocking it off and selling it, even if they're not trying to sell it under your name or your brand, I mean, that's harmful to your business and to your product.
I handled a case one time. It was a divorce case, and the wife had this product, and she was on Shark Tank, and
I knew Shark Tank was going to come up.
Yeah, and she was the manufacturing facility was local, and so she was paying American wages and all. And I think on Shark Tank they asked her, why don't you outsource it to China? Or maybe she had outsourced it, a piece of it to China, and they just took the design and made it pennies on the dollar. You get a short-term influx of capital because you're saving money on profitability, but then it's a commodity. They'll just recreate it with a different brand and sell that, right? And so I think that's another consideration people should have before they send their products to China to be manufactured.
It's out of your hands.
It's out of your hands. They'll just rip it off, especially something without